player. And interestingly, Messi couldn't win the World Cup until the World Cup went to Qatar. So there has to be something in Qatar that ignites Messi. So that's what we're about. So myself and Abdullah Kamis, and I told the young man, drink a lot of Coke, you're going to be great. So that's what I told him. And we have Coke on.
In this video, I will be speaking about the anatomy from midfield player. Midfielders can be summarized into four important positions, and they are CM, CDM, CAM or CAM, and left and right midfielders. Depending on the way players play and where they train, their positions are usually chosen for them. We will talk about all this and other incredible football players like Modric, KDB, Ronaldinho, Messi. We will also be talking about the type of training they do to improve as a midfielder, the muscles used to engage in a football game as a midfielder. We'll be also speaking about Messi's upper body movement, anatomical analysis of Messi's upper and lower body movement, and his center of gravity. Leg muscle. Kicking and jumping requires even more power from your lower body, and the use of your iliotibial band and adductor leg muscles, off and pulling legs. Running and sprinting alone will engage several leg muscles. The quads, hamstring, and calf muscles are also necessary. Simple exercises and workouts like long distance running, sprinting, lunges, and squats can help you build these muscles. Muscles in the glute and hips to develop the explosive strength necessary to compete with the other football players, and the ball requires more than just strong leg muscles. Additionally, your hip and glute muscles are crucial.
So the very first thing is the player's center of gravity. Like I've said before, this is where all of the forces come together, and the player is usually able to remain upright and keep moving. Very important. Now, if we look at Messi's upper limb, which is the two hands here, you can quickly see that the left upper limb is away from the body. Now, why he needs, so this movement is called abduction. Now, if you look at the other hand, it's really two movements. It's really that way. Okay, so the other hand, you can see, interestingly, there's a movement. Start drawing. Great. So there's a movement that goes from sort of like behind the back in a straight line. That is extension, as well as doing a movement that simulates the movement that I just talked about. Now, furthermore, you would also agree with me that the other hand has also done a sort of forward movement in the flexion. So the flexion movement is sort of that movement going forward that way, while the extension is this movement going that way. Now, if you look at Messi, he needed these two movements to gain upper body balance. Now, you would agree with me that what Messi is intending to do here is to dribble this player. A number of things. He's trying to go towards the player's left or fend and goes towards the player's right. Now, one of the things he needs to do is he needs bending of his knees. And the bending of the knees is called, so he needs two movements. He needs to bend his hip, and the bending of the hip forward that way is called hip flexion. And so what you have is there's some movement a little bit. Is arrow on? Oh yes, so can you see that? That's a little bit. Now the knee also needs to be bent. Therefore, but the bending of atomic terms is a little bit different, and the knee goes that way. And so you can see there's the bending of the knee, which is called flexion, and the opposite would be extension. Now, if you look at the ankle of Messi, there's a bit of you have here is the bending of the ankle that way. Back, okay, that way. That is called dorsiflexion. So we've analyzed the movement in this player. Finally, you can see largely the other lower limb is stationary. You can argue there's a little bit of bending there. Yes, a little bit of bending there. But you would agree with me that if you look at the foot there, there's a bit of inward movement called inversion. Now, if we analyze this player, we can clearly see that for Messi to dribble a player, either to the player's right or to the player's left, he needed at least about 8 movements. And so let's quickly go one. He needs to keep his back stationary. And that's important to achieve a very good center of gravity so that he can do this movement and not fall. Now, the next, he needs to get support of his center of gravity, like the wings of an aeroplane. And how to do that is he needs to abduct as well as flex his left upper limb, and also extend and abduct his right lower limb. He also needed to, on his dominant foot, which we know, he needed some hip flexion, and then on the knee, he needed some knee flexion as well as some ankle plantar flexion, and some people would argue as well as a little bit of inversion. On the other limb, on the other lower limb, he needed it to be straight and what we would call locking of the knee, a little bit of maybe bending at the knee, and inversion at the foot. So we can see the beauty of, how anatomy and football come together. Now, all of these are important in, the training that a football player is supposed to get, what muscle in order to have peak performance, as well as the injuries you can see. Now, we can go through every one of the body parts and predict potential injuries when Messi does this. In our next video, we would be telling you what ligament, what tendon, what muscle can be injured. Yeah, so the midfield play, you can see it's working yet. Come on. Great. So this is the midfield play, So we expect a midfielder to go round this. Now, if you look at the movement most attacking midfielders would play, so attacking midfielders would attack, left, right, center, isn't it? Oftentimes that would be how you probably want them to play, except they are playing maybe more from the flank. Either way. Now, what does happen is, from a manager's point of view, depending on the intensity of the game, you want to think about a few things when you are getting an attacking midfielder. You want to think about the midfielder's height, because there's a correlation between the midfielder's height as well as their center of gravity. You want to think about your style of play. So if you are a team which really likes to hold possession, attack play deep, then you want a attacking midfielder who really has a good center of gravity, who is a really good playmaker. And you want to look at the kind of training you want to focus on that midfielder. You want to focus on training their upper and lower body to improve their center of gravity. That way you would reduce their injury rate. If you are the type of manager that plays on the flank, you want to train a lot of the lower body of your attacking midfielder so that they have pace, and control while running on the ball. You also want to train them to be able to have power to cross and foil the ball. So this tells you, in essence, what sort of things to think about. As oftentimes attacking midfielders are likely going to probably have much more injuries in the the what's the ligaments on the inner and outer parts of the ankle. So you have the medial and lateral ligaments, that you have a bunch of them. You have the deltoid, the calcaneal, clavicular ligaments, and a host of that. But the importance is because of this movement, dribbling movements, they are more prone to have that. And this is something, as a manager, you want to discuss with the player, and of course the sports people. So these are some of the manager's insight in terms of what you are playing, what type of game you are playing. So and to take, yeah, space, the player center of gravity, and even the formation of the game. If you play a very midfield heavy formation, where you play probably 2 or 3 or 4 attacking midfielders, then of course it's going to be different if you play maybe 4-3-3. So 4-3-3 is highly offensive attacking midfield, isn't it? So you've got 2 attacking midfielders on the flank and a striker in the middle. And then you have 1 defensive midfielder and 2 on the side. And then you have the defense line. That's different from 4-4-2, where it's quite midfield defensive heavy, if you like. And you have 2 attacking or something like that.
Honestly, Dr. Jonathan, you have done everything, and this is quite beneficial to me as well. I didn't even know as much as you did.
No, but it's a conversation, isn't it? I mean,
Mhm.
is there maybe a player you want us to,
I
just use to
Honestly,
illustrate
I
some of this
usually
point?
play 4-4-2, and I use the flanks most often as a manager, but I think you have covered that, right?
Okay. Yes, yes, yes. So, I mean, flank players really would for most teams would be players that really have decent pace and decent crossing. So, if you are training, for instance, a flank player, you probably want to really focus on short-term cardio burst. Sorry,
Mhm.
what that means is you really want to train their heart and their lungs to be able to take in a lot of air at short distance, and so they are able to accelerate really quick, getting the cross in, become dangerous. And you see that in, for instance, how Cristiano tends to play. Cristiano, Iron Robben, some of
Mhm.
the really very dangerous from the flank. All right, lovely. So I think